Hello, friends, foes, and neutral parties. To take you on a little adventure in redesigning an old character of mine. This character was designed when I was probably about 12 or 13 years old, and I took it upon myself starting in 2018 to draw her again every few years. I took a couple years off, redrew her in 2021, and as we entered 2022, I really wanted to tackle her design again before I redrew her to track my progress. Without further ado, let's get into it. So the first step in any design process is doing variations and concept sketches. I took the time to draw, I believe, 4 variations of this character. Here I'm just sketching out like a basic body form, and what I end up doing is just copy and pasting this little figure to test my designs on. Here I'm making little notes about her character to give myself an idea of where to work from, and this first design is pretty similar to her existing design or her previous design. It's got the long skirt, the tall boots, the long sleeves. I changed up a couple details, and I like to keep that reference image on the side so I have an idea of what I'm working with. Version 2, I wanted to change up the hair a little bit. I give her a shorter skirt. I really like the silhouette of a tabard. That's what that like middle piece is called on her skirt. Here I'm slapping in some color. So what I do each time I make a variation is I take the notes from the previous drawing and kind of tweak them, see what I can do to make them work better for the character, for the design, make it feel more cohesive. And this last guy is the one, spoiler alert, that I end up using. I liked the fluffy sleeves, I liked the shorter skirt. I wanted to bring in those lighter details on her shirt. I ended up making the ruffles the same color. I struggled with her hair because I wanted to keep the braids, but I didn't want to make them like really long and obnoxious. And here's just the finished shot of all 4 of them set together. So the next step is doing the turnaround. Turnaround for the uninformed is where you take a character and you draw them over and over again from different angles. Turnarounds are not my favorite. I had to do them when I was in college, and I always super struggled with them. So I was very stressed out about this one working and getting it correct and making it look nice and neat. I was very stressed out about it. But I persevered because I really wanted to do a proper turnaround for this character. So here I'm doing just like a 3/4 pose. So typically you'll do a turnaround with a front, a back. If the design is symmetrical, then you can just do like a side view. If they have an asymmetrical design, you're going to want to do a left and a right, and then like a 3/4. And actually what you'll notice in a lot of professional designs, or professional turnarounds, I should say, is they will usually do like one color drawing, and then the rest will be just black and white or uncolored. They might have colored line art. I did not do that. But here we can see me struggling for my life to do line art. I do not like to do line art. I primarily digitally paint, and doing this line art took probably a couple years off my life. But like I said, I persevered. I really wanted to do this in a specific way. I just really wanted to get it done, and I didn't want to paint a turnaround because that sounds like a nightmare. As far as her colors go, I'll touch on this real quick. I already had a pretty clear idea of what I wanted from her colors. She's had a very similar color palette since her conception. I think I tweaked them a little bit to be a little less vibrant and a little more cohesive by warming up that blue that's in her skirt. And here I'm just doing a quick rendering with some shading and some highlights, and now I'm doing the back. But yeah, I wanted to keep the same color palette because I actually quite liked her color palette with the warm hair and the cool toned dress. I didn't feel like it needed to be changed, honestly. I felt like it was a really solid color palette already. I just was not a fan of her design. It felt very dated to me. It was definitely originally inspired by like Black Butler and Grand Gregorian Orchestra, which are a couple of manga from that were very popular when I was in middle school when I originally designed this character. Some info about this character's original conception. Her name is Neria. That is how that is pronounced. She is a traveling performer. She's a singer. She's kind of the straight man. There were other characters that she went along with. It was like a traveling troupe of performers. Oh, I was working on her front view. Oops. Oh, I think I realized that her back view was gonna be a lot easier to draw if I drew her front view first. That makes sense. And then here I'm busting out some boot references. These are the shoe pack from Juke Pub stock. They have phenomenal stock. I really like this pack. It's very useful for drawing shoes, which are not something I draw frequently. I use a lot of references in my art. I didn't used to always be very good about it, but I've since gotten better about it since going to school, and drawing stuff without knowing what it looks like is incredibly difficult, which sounds like a water is wet statement, but it's factual. And then here I'm penciling in her side view and kind of fighting with like what I want her corset to look like because I have it going down in the front and in the back. I have an image of her front view overlaid on top so I know where all her spots are, and then that little image next to her I'm using as reference for a profile. That is also from Juke Pub stock. And then I have a little reference of her face so I know that I'm making her eyes and her hair the right direction and the right shape and size. Profiles are definitely something I struggle with. There's something I want to get better at. I think a lot of artists struggle with profiles. At least a lot of my peers did. We were all what's the word? It was definitely something a lot of us avoided, I think. Here I'm just finishing up the line work on her legs. And then I'll slap in her colors. Yeah, so she was part of a traveling troupe of performers, and she was kind of the straight man because the other characters who were designed by my friends were like wacky and quirky, and I felt like we needed a straight man. But here's the finished turnaround. I have her color palette up top so I can easily color pick in the future when I go to draw her again. I actually quite like how this turned out. I think her profile, it's not my best work, but it's pretty good. I think it's good enough. Alright, the final part of this is the final piece / the character art. Normally this would be called like a narrative piece, but it's not very narratively informative, so I'm just calling it a character piece. I'm using a reference image again. This reference image is from Adorka stock. Miss Sarah from Adorka stock, I love you, #1 fan. No, if you need a variety of poses and a variety of people in said poses, I highly recommend checking out Adorka stock. Her work is fantastic. She's got a really big archive. She's been doing it for years and years and years. And her stuff's just really good quality. Very good variety and stuff. I use her poses all the time when I'm drawing because they're just mwah, like chef's kiss. Like, I thank you. Thank you, Adorka stock. Alright, so here I'm going through the process of painting this. That background that I popped in there was a painting I had drawn like a couple months prior, and I didn't feel like painting another landscape, so I just used what I had already painted. My process, I go pretty quickly through this because otherwise this would be like 15 minutes, and I don't think anyone wants to watch just 15 minutes of me rendering. I will go into my process a little more in depth at a future date, I think. But basically, I sketch out my basic forms, and then I go in and I clean them up a little bit, and I develop them a little bit more. I do my underpainting, which is basically I do my flats, and then I do my shading and my highlights. And then after that, after all my underpainting is done, I will merge everything together onto one layer and just go from there. So that's what I'm doing now at this point in the video. I'm working on her face. I always like to paint faces first. I don't know why, but faces are my favorite place to start. And then I kind of radiate out from there. So I'm like, I'll work on the neck, and then I'll do like bits of the hair, and then I'll do, bits of the skin. I think I always do like face, and then I'll do some of the hair, and then I'll get tired of doing the hair because hair is hard to render. And then I'll work my way down like the body. So we'll go like to the chest, to the arms, so on and so forth. And then I usually end up doing either hair or legs last, I can't remember. And then I'll go back and I'll tweak stuff back and forth. I really just kind of like do laps around the painting until I feel like a certain area has had enough attention, and then I'll go on to another area, and then I might come back to that first area later on when I'm like, oh shoot, something's getting lost in the details. So now I'm working on her little frock that she's got underneath her dress, and then I'm cleaning up her arm, going in, repainting her entire bracelet because I didn't like how it was looking, and then going through and doing her hand. Hands are also something I need to work on. I feel like I've gotten quite good at them in the past few years. If you go back and look at those first few versions of her, the 2012 and 2018 versions, you will notice a stunning lack of hands in the frame. And it's because I didn't know how to draw them very well. And now I'm going through and working on her skirt. I actually quite like painting fabric. I think it's a lot of fun. And I also like painting ruffles. All that white ruffly stuff underneath her skirt. I really enjoy drawing and rendering ruffles. There's just something very fun and methodical about it. Yeah. I'm back on the skirt. In this painting, I tried to make it apparent that things were different textures. So her corset, you'll notice, has a little bit of like a rougher painting on it to give it more of a maybe leather texture. Her skirt, I wanted to make a bit shinier, like bring in some other tones that weren't just teal. And then trying to keep the shading on like her socks not too dramatic, so they might look like they're made out of wool, which is less reflective than say like silk. It's definitely something that I still need to spend some time with, but that's what art's all about. It's about improving. It's about doing better every day or every month, whenever you get the chance to paint or draw or sculpt or what have you. It's all a journey. We're all getting there eventually, one by one, in our own ways. Here I'm cleaning up her boots a little bit. You can see me going in. A lot of the times I will go in, slap a darker shade down, and then make it brighter, or I will do the inverse. Well, I will slap down a brighter shade and then go back with my darker shades. And now I'm rendering the hair. I'm actually quite pleased with how her hair turned out. It's that same process of blocking down lighter colors, blocking darker colors, brighter colors, darker colors, brighter colors, darker colors. And with hair, I like to try to do a bunch of implied lines. So you'll notice like some loose line work around like her face and her dress and stuff like that, which are leftover lines from my sketch. But in the actual hair, I try to avoid doing a lot of line work because I find it looks just a little bit nicer when it's all a little more blended. Now here I'm adding some finishing touches, a little bit of color adjustment, some eye shinies, popping in a frame, and here she is. I am really pleased with how this final product turned out. I did start her redesign in early 2022, and 2022 was not a kind year to me. So it took me probably like through the end of 2022 to finish her variations and her turnarounds. And then I finally got around to actually painting this in early 2023. And now it's the end of 2023 as I am recording this. So it's been about 2 years for me to get this done, which, you know, it's all about getting there. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed coming along on this journey with me. And if you'd like to see this finished piece in all her glory, I will leave a link down below so you can check out the final piece on my blog. But thank you, and have a wonderful evening.